Everyone knows Tom Selleck as the calm, collected, moustachioed icon. The kind of guy who minds his business, avoids the drama, and keeps it classy. But even the coolest man in Hollywood has his limits. Over the course of his long and steady career, a few actors manage to step on his toes, and when you push Tom Selleck too far, you see a whole different side of him. He doesn't dish out grudges easily, so if he's got beef with someone, you can bet they really cross the line. Here are 5 actors who managed to seriously piss Tom Selleck off and live to regret it. Rosie O'Donnell. Coming up first is Rosie O'Donnell. Tom Selleck disliked Rosie because of one particular interview she conducted back in 1999. An interview that started off routine but quickly turned into something else entirely. Tom, now well into his golden years, continues to stay incredibly relevant, thanks in large part to his role on Blue Bloods. Long before that, he became a massive fan favorite with his guest role on Friends, playing Dr. Richard Burke, Monica's older love interest. Through it all, Tom has remained polished, composed, and especially professional during interviews, rarely ever ruffled, no matter the setting. That legendary calmness, however, was put to the ultimate test when he sat across from Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie, as many know, is no stranger to controversy. Just ask Priyanka Chopra. Over the years, Rosie has lost quite a few fans due to her outspoken and often polarizing opinions, and that included a chunk of her own audience after the infamous live interview with Tom Selleck aired in 1999. The interview was supposed to focus on Tom's then-new romantic drama, The Love Letter, a light, heartfelt movie set in the sleepy New England town of Loblolly by the sea. The film follows a mysterious, unsigned letter that passes from hand to hand, stirring up curiosity, passion, and unexpected connections among the townsfolk. At the center of the story is Helen McFarquhar, played by Kate Capshaw, a bookshop owner determined to uncover the author of the letter. Her journey pulls her into emotional entanglements with 2 very different men: George, played by Tom Selleck, an old friend from her past, and Johnny, Tom Everett Scott, a much younger suitor who brings something new into her life. The story unfolds with charm and a quiet intensity, reflecting on love, timing, and second chances. With a cast that also included Ellen DeGeneres, Blythe Danner, and Gloria Stewart, the film was a feel-good romantic piece meant to warm hearts. But instead of celebrating the film's themes or exploring Tom's role in the project, Rosie steered the interview in a completely different and much more confrontational direction. She brought up the National Rifle Association, NRA, catching Tom completely off guard. What was meant to be a conversation about love and art quickly morphed into a political debate. Rosie, known for her strong opinions, implied that Selleck's former affiliation with the NRA meant he supported gun violence, a heavy accusation to make on live television and in such a wildly unrelated context. To his credit, Tom kept his composure. He calmly clarified that while he had been a member of the NRA during his youth, that did not mean he supported or aligned with every stance the organization took. Still, it was clear that the tone of the interview had shifted, and not in a good way. Fans watching felt the tension, and many criticized Rosie for hijacking what should have been a light, promotional moment. This wasn't Rosie's first brush with celebrity conflict either. Over the years, she's butted heads with big names like Whoopi Goldberg, Kelly Ripa, Elizabeth Hasselbeck, and most notably, Donald Trump. In fact, her feud with Trump has dragged on for decades. Speaking with People, Rosie even admitted that Trump still hasn't let it go. "I said some things about him. Not nearly as bad as I could have said, but I just talked about him not being a self-made man, having money from his father, and saying he went bankrupt and it made him go berserk. I think he can't let go of a strong woman standing up to him. He won't let it die." Trump responded by threatening to sue her back in 2006 for making what he called false claims. For a man who rarely gets rattled, Rosie managed to hit a nerve. And when someone like Tom Selleck is genuinely irritated, you can be sure someone seriously overstepped. Rosie would continue the ambush, doubling down by calling Selleck a spokesperson for the cause, despite the fact that it was clear he was visibly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation had taken. The actor had shown up to promote his film, not to become the subject of a politically charged grilling. Still, Tom held it together. Though you could see flashes of irritation beneath his calm exterior, Selleck never lost his cool. One particular frustration, as he later noted, was that Rosie barely let him get a word in. She dominated the conversation, pushing a narrative he didn't sign up to discuss. The interview ended awkwardly. Rosie gave a quick, almost dismissive plug for the love letter, but the moment had clearly derailed far from its original purpose. The tension was unmistakable. It was a sour ending to what was supposed to be a positive promotional spot. Years later, Rosie O'Donnell reflected on the moment with a sense of regret. Looking back on the May 1999 interview, she admitted her approach was misjudged. "I think it's just the first time that I ever challenged a celebrity," she told People. "In hindsight, if I had to redo it, I would do it differently." Kind man who, for the rest of his life, has to be associated with me and that one event. Rosie also shared that she wasn't in the best emotional state at the time. That may have contributed to her confrontational tone, something she now recognizes wasn't fair to Tom, who hadn't come on the show to engage in that kind of debate. The moment has since gone viral, racking up over 1 million views on YouTube. And while Rosie drew criticism for her tactics, Tom Selleck was widely applauded for how he handled the situation. Across the comments, one sentiment kept echoing: class. "I love how Selleck just quieted down near the end and let her burn herself out," one viewer wrote. "He knew the game that was being played and just wasn't going to go for it." Another added, "Tom Selleck is a gentleman who handled Rosie with more grace than I would have." And perhaps most tellingly, Tom really does handle himself well. Classy guy? I agree with his sentiment, which is, stop thinking that everyone who disagrees with you is evil. He listens and speaks intelligently. Despite being unfairly placed in the hot seat, Tom never retaliated or lashed out. Instead, he showed restraint, a quality that would only enhance his image in the eyes of the public. It was a tense moment, no doubt, but one he navigated with complete composure. Thankfully, the controversy didn't slow down his career. The love letter may not have made box office headlines, but Tom's star power remained intact, and he continued to land prominent roles, including the lead in Blue Bloods, where he's remained a fixture for years. What's perhaps even more telling is that Tom never held a grudge. He spoke respectfully of Rosie in later years, never using the moment to attack her character or question her intentions. That kind of grace is rare, especially in the entertainment world, where egos can easily overshadow professionalism. Classy from beginning to end, even when things got messy. That's Tom Selleck. Next on the list is someone whom Tom Selleck didn't show the type of mercy he showed Rosie O'Donnell. The Globe lawsuit. Tom Selleck rose to fame in the 1980s as the dashing Thomas Magnum in the hit series Magnum, P.I. With his tall frame, rugged charm, and signature mustache, Selleck quickly became one of Hollywood's most recognizable heartthrobs. Despite the public persona he carried and a personal life that included a marriage to Jilly Mack, Selleck would find himself at the center of a salacious and baseless rumor that questioned his sexuality. In the world of celebrity gossip, few things sell faster than controversy, and tabloid culture has long thrived on exploiting that. Most celebrities try to ignore it, allowing false headlines to blow over. But Tom Selleck was never one to sit back and let lies define him. In 1991, he filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the Globe after they published claims insinuating that he was secretly gay. The origins of the scandal were as strange as they were damaging. That year, anonymous posters began appearing around New York City, claiming that several well-known celebrities, including Selleck, were gay, but closeted. Instead of dismissing the stunt as an obvious hoax, the Globe decided to capitalize on it. They ran a story titled, "Gay Stars Stop Traffic," reprinting the posters and dragging Selleck's name into a narrative he had no part in. Selleck was understandably furious. He initially reached out to the Globe, asking them to retract the story, but when the publication refused, he responded by filing a $20 million defamation of character lawsuit against Globe International Inc. According to Entertainment Weekly, this move was unprecedented at the time, especially since the legal system is notoriously difficult to navigate when it comes to defamation. Under U.S. law, the burden of proof in defamation cases lies with the plaintiff. Selleck not only had to prove that the story was false, but also that the publication acted with actual malice, meaning they knew it was untrue and published it anyway. Most celebrities, faced with the uphill legal battle and steep legal fees, would have backed down, but not Selleck. Unsurprisingly, this wasn't his first legal battle with the Globe either. Back in the mid-1980s, the tabloid published a fabricated interview supposedly conducted with his father, Robert Selleck. The piece was titled, "Why Tom Selleck Can Never Be a Happy Lover," and its central implication was again that Selleck was gay, using a fake interview with his father to add weight to the claim. Although Tom himself didn't file the lawsuit in that instance, his father did. It was a long legal battle that lasted nearly 8 years, but in the end, Robert Selleck won. The court awarded him an undisclosed financial settlement. Still, by the time justice was served, the damage had long been done. The article had already circulated and left its mark. Selleck's persistence in defending his character, both for himself and through his family, spoke volumes about the kind of person he is. He wasn't just defending his public image, he was standing up against a powerful system of media exploitation that often targets celebrities with little regard for truth. And perhaps most importantly, he wasn't attacking the LGBTQ+ community. His issue was with being falsely labeled and having his identity manipulated for profit. In a media climate where actors often get reduced to tabloid headlines, Tom Selleck drew a line. He wasn't going to let rumors define him. Today, Selleck continues to be celebrated not only for his enduring career in shows like Blue Bloods and memorable roles in Friends, but also for the integrity he displayed during one of the most invasive chapters of his public life. He stood his ground when it mattered most, with class, clarity, and conviction. Unlike the lengthy legal battle fought by Selleck's father, Tom's own lawsuit against the Globe was resolved swiftly. Within weeks of filing the defamation suit, both parties agreed to settle out of court. As part of the agreement, the Globe was required to issue a public apology for insinuating that Selleck was gay and pay him an undisclosed sum in damages. But Selleck's stand didn't end in the courtroom. In 1997, just a few years after suing the Globe and the National Enquirer for similar false claims, Selleck made a bold, unexpected move. Known for his traditionally masculine roles and romantic leads, he took on the part of a gay reporter in the comedy In and Out, starring opposite Kevin Kline. The role surprised fans and silenced critics. At the time, Selleck found himself caught in a frustrating paradox. Suing tabloids for falsely labeling him as gay had somehow led to accusations that he was anti-gay. It was a no-win situation, unless he did something to shift the narrative entirely. That's exactly what he aimed to do by embracing the role in and Out, which included a now famous on-screen kiss with another man. Years later, in a 2015 interview with TV Guide, Selleck explained his reasoning. Because I had sued several tabloids for falsely saying I was gay, people were saying I was anti-gay. Playing the role ended both those rumors. His decision was a calculated but sincere one, not to make a political statement, but to assert control over a story that had been twisted for headlines. In doing so, he not only challenged public perceptions, but also showed a level of personal conviction and self-awareness rare among celebrities navigating scandal. Throughout his career, Selleck has shown that he's not afraid to speak up when it matters, whether that's in defense of his reputation or to correct public misperceptions. And perhaps it's that same quiet resilience that's helped him remain largely untouched by tabloid fodder in the decades since. Now, after years of staying relatively private, Selleck is preparing to tell his story on his own terms, with a planned memoir that promises to pull back the curtain on his life and career. This time, though, he's the one holding the pen: Harrison Ford. Tom Selleck is as synonymous with Magnum P.I. as Harrison Ford is with Indiana Jones. But imagine an alternate reality where Selleck was Indiana Jones, cracking whips, dodging boulders, and outwitting Nazis. That nearly happened. In fact, Selleck was offered the role before Ford, but fate and a CBS contract had other plans. In the early 1980s, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were preparing to launch Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first film in what would become one of the most iconic franchises in movie history. While Ford had already worked with Lucas on Star Wars, Lucas was hesitant to cast him again, fearing the repetition might mimic the overfamiliar partnership between Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese. "Ford has been in 2 of my movies. I don't want him to be my Bobby De Niro," Lucas reportedly said. So the duo began their search for a fresh face, and landed on Tom Selleck. Selleck had just filmed the pilot for a new CBS detective show called Magnum P.I. When Spielberg and Lucas offered him the role of Indiana Jones, Selleck was honest. He told them about the CBS show. "Well, thanks for telling us," they replied. "Most actors wouldn't do that, but we've got cards to play with CBS." Those cards didn't play out. Despite the hopes of Spielberg and Lucas, and Selleck himself, CBS refused to release him from his contractual obligations. Even a brief Screen Actors Guild strike, which temporarily halted TV production and opened a small window of possibility, ended before filming on Raiders could begin. Selleck was locked into Magnum, and so the role passed to Ford, forever linking him with the fedora-wearing archaeologist. Selleck has never expressed bitterness about the missed opportunity, but he acknowledges the twist of fate with good humor. "After I did the pilot for Magnum, I tested for Indiana Jones and got the job," he later shared. "Steven and George, my newest pals at the time, offered me the job. And as for Ford, Harrison Ford hates to hear this," Selleck once joked. "Harrison, this is your role, and you're indelible in it. So, it's just an interesting story." An interesting story indeed, one of Hollywood's great what-ifs. Still, it's hard to imagine Selleck regretting much. Magnum P.I. made him a household name, and his career, from 3 Men and a Baby to Blue Bloods, has proven that you don't need a whip and a fedora to become a legend. Ken Sanzel. We all know that Selleck is popular because of Blue Bloods, but what if we told you that Ken Sanzel and Selleck butted heads? That's right. Selleck reportedly refused to accept scripts that he felt leaned too heavily into procedural territory, creating friction with Sanzel, who was, as one insider put it, doing the network's bidding thanklessly. The network backed Sanzel, who had been hesitant to take the job in the first place, but agreed after being urged by CBS execs. Selleck, on the other hand, wasn't thrilled that Sanzel had been imposed upon him. Behind the long-running success of Blue Bloods lies a chapter of behind-the-scenes tension that almost derailed the show before it even found its footing. Tom Selleck, the star and face of the series, found himself in a creative standoff with executive producer Ken Sanzel, a situation CBS insiders diplomatically called creative tension. From the beginning, there were signs of discord. Sanzel, a former NYPD cop and seasoned showrunner best known for his work on Numbers, was brought in by CBS after the Blue Bloods pilot to shape it into a strong crime procedural. But Selleck envisioned something entirely different, a more character-driven drama that explored the emotional and moral complexity of the Reagan family, not just weekly crimes. Things came to a head quickly. Though Sanzell was initially still on the project by midday, he announced to the staff later that day that he would be stepping down. One source described the exit as respectful, not abrupt. He was seen as a stand-up guy who wouldn't leave the network or studio hanging. It was chalked up to creative differences. It happens. According to reports, Selleck wanted to bring in his guy to help guide the show's vision moving forward, someone who would prioritize character exploration over traditional procedural storytelling, though that person would still need CBS and studio approval. The drama was particularly delicate, given the involvement of Leonard Goldberg, a CBS board member, as executive producer. Some insiders acknowledged that too many powerful voices had created a "too many cooks" scenario. As one summed it up, Selleck realized it's not the show he thought he was in. Despite being considered a long shot when picked up, ranked last out of 10 pilots, Blue Bloods secured a place on the schedule, largely thanks to Selleck's star power and Goldberg's influence. It took over the Friday 10 p.m. slot previously held by Numb Thurs, Sanzell's former show. Sanzell's departure marked a quiet shift in direction for Blue Bloods, one that ultimately helped it strike a balance between character and casework, and likely contributed to its longevity on CBS. When Blue Bloods premiered in 2010, it marked Tom Selleck's triumphant return to hour-long television drama after more than 2 decades. His last major stint had been as the beloved Thomas Magnum in Magnum, P. Rao, 1980 to 1988. While Selleck dabbled in projects like the short-lived CBS sitcom The Closer and found success in the Jesse Stone TV movies, Blue Bloods was his first major series commitment since his Magnum days, and a significant one at that. Originally titled Reagan's Law, Blue Bloods was pitched as a multi-generational family drama centered around a proud, tight-knit family of New York cops. Selleck stepped into the role of Frank Reagan, the widowed NYPD commissioner and patriarch of the Reagan family, bringing his signature gravitas to a character grounded more in moral complexity than in action. Despite the show's steady climb to ratings dominance, becoming a primetime powerhouse and an enduring staple of CBS's Friday night lineup, Blue Bloods' behind-the-scenes story is marked by creative clashes, high-profile exits, and shifting power dynamics. At the heart of the early creative struggles was a fundamental disagreement about what kind of show Blue Bloods should be. The series creators, Mitchell Burgess and Robin Green, both Emmy-winning veterans of The Sopranos, envisioned a drama that balanced police investigations with emotional depth and family nuance. It was a vision shared by Selleck himself, who advocated for stories that explored character and legacy, not just weekly cases. But CBS had other ideas. The network, known for procedural juggernauts like NCIS and CSI, wanted Blue Bloods to lean more heavily into the crime procedural format. To reinforce that direction, they brought in former Numb Thurs showrunner Ken Sanzell, a former NYPD officer, to steer the ship. That decision quickly led to friction. Sanzell's take-charge style clashed with Selleck's character-driven instincts. Scripts were rejected. Creative meetings turned tense. CBS backed Sanzell, but Selleck, with star power and clout behind him, held his ground. Eventually, Sanzell stepped down after only 1 season, choosing to saunter off peacefully, according to insiders. But the shakeup didn't end there. Not long after Sanzell's exit, Burgess and Green were also quietly let go, despite the show's early success and strong ratings. According to a 2011 Deadline report, the duo was ousted for the very same reason, pushing too hard for character-driven storytelling over procedural formula. Even more ironically, CBS had heavily marketed Blue Bloods as from the executive producers of The Sopranos, only to fire those same producers after 1 season. It wasn't the first time Burgess and Green had faced this kind of creative fallout. They had also been fired from The Sopranos during its final season, reportedly falling out of favor with creator David Chase. Still, their post-Sopranos work in creating Blue Bloods remains one of their most commercially successful endeavors. even if they were forced to watch from the sidelines as the show became one of CBS's longest-running series. CBS executives disputes over Blue Blood's cancellation. After 14 seasons, countless Sunday dinners, and a loyal weekly audience, Blue Bloods is finally coming to an end. Tom Selleck, who has played Commissioner Frank Reagan since the show began in 2010, recently expressed strong frustration and disappointment about the decision. The 79-year-old actor explained in a conversation with TV Insider that he had avoided talking about the show ending during the last 8 episodes. Instead, he had wanted to focus on how the series was still performing extremely well. He emphasized that Blue Bloods was still one of the most watched shows, placing 9th in total viewership for the 2023-2024 season. He believed that if football broadcasts were not counted, the show would be ranked 6th. Selleck found it hard to understand how a network could cancel a show that had guaranteed Friday night ratings success for 15 straight years, even in one of the most difficult time slots. He admitted that despite being a team player, he often felt the show was taken for granted. According to him, the series had always delivered strong performance right from the beginning, and that consistency might have made people undervalue it. He said that filming the final episode left him emotionally confused. After that weekend, he caught himself preparing for a regular workday, only to realize there was no Monday shoot waiting for him. He admitted it would take time to come to terms with the show being over. When talking about what he would miss most, Selleck mentioned the actors without hesitation. He said the cast had grown as close in real life as the Reagan family they portrayed on screen. He pointed out that every actor wanted to return for more seasons, which is rare in long-running television shows. He believed that many shows end with jealousy or conflict, but Blue Bloods had managed to avoid all of that. In his view, that unity was something everyone involved could be proud of. Other core cast members, including Donnie Wahlberg, Danny, Len Cariou, Henry, Will Estes, Jamie, Vanessa Ray, Eddie, and Bridget Moynihan, Aaron, had also expressed a desire to continue. Their willingness to return kept fans and insiders talking about the possibility of a spin-off. CBS Studios president David Stapf supported the idea of a continuation, saying there were many directions a Blue Blood spin-off could go. He stated that with a full season still ahead, there was enough time to figure something out. This was not the first time Selleck had voiced his concerns about the show's cancellation. During an earlier interview on CBS Sunday Morning, he revealed that the end of the series might affect his personal finances. He admitted that while he was financially secure, maintaining a 63-acre ranch in Ventura County, California, could become a challenge without steady work from the show. Despite the disappointment, Selleck made it clear that he had no plans to retire. He said he hoped to act in another Western in the future, and still believed there was a chance CBS might reconsider the cancellation. To many viewers, Blue Bloods was never just a police drama. It was a series that mixed law enforcement stories with deep family values, tradition, and moral complexity. Thanks to its consistent storytelling and Selleck's strong presence as the Reagan family patriarch, the show became a television staple for more than a decade. Even though the final 8 episodes are set to air beginning October 18, 2024, the impact of the show and Selleck's commitment to it will continue to be felt. Whether through a spin-off or a surprise revival, the legacy of Blue Bloods will not fade quietly. What do you think about Tom Selleck? Do you think suing the Globe for putting out false information about him was a good thing? Or do you think otherwise? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Also, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and click on the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.